William Henderson had always been a man of routine. Every morning at exactly 6:30, he would wake up, brew his coffee in the same blue mug his late mother had given him, and sit by the kitchen window watching the neighborhood slowly come to life. His wife, Kate, would join him 20 minutes later, her hair still messy from sleep, and they would share quiet moments before the day demanded their attention. This particular Tuesday morning started no differently. The autumn air carried the scent of dying leaves and the promise of winter, while golden sunlight filtered through their small kitchen window. William stirred his coffee absently, watching Mrs. Rodriguez from next door chase her escaped cat around her front yard. Kate shuffled in wearing her favorite purple robe, the one with tiny flowers that had faded after countless washes. "Morning, love," she mumbled, reaching for her own cup. Her voice was still thick with sleep, but William found comfort in its familiarity. After 28 years of marriage, some things never changed, and he was grateful for that consistency in an increasingly unpredictable world. "Sleep well?" William asked, though he already knew the answer. Kate had been restless lately, tossing and turning more than usual. She blamed it on the stress from her job at the local library, where budget cuts threatened her position, but William suspected there was more to it. "Better than yesterday," she replied, settling into her chair across from him. The morning light caught the silver threads that had begun weaving through her brown hair, making her look distinguished rather than old. William thought she was more beautiful now than when they first met at a church social 30 years ago. Their house on Maple Street was modest but comfortable. They had bought it as newlyweds with big dreams and small savings, planning to fill it with children and laughter. Life had different plans. After years of trying and several heartbreaking losses, they had learned to find joy in other things. Kate's volunteer work at the animal shelter, William's weekend carpentry projects, their annual camping trips to the mountains. The doorbell rang just as William was finishing his second cup of coffee. He glanced at the clock on the microwave, 7:45. Too early for deliveries, too late for emergencies. Kate raised her eyebrows questioningly, but William just shrugged and headed toward the front door. "Probably just Jenny from down the street," he called over his shoulder. She mentioned needing help with her fence. But when William opened the door, it wasn't Jenny standing on his front porch. Instead, he found himself face to face with a young woman he had never seen before, holding the hand of a small boy who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. The woman looked to be in her early 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and clothes that had seen better days. Her eyes were red-rimmed, as if she had been crying recently. The little boy beside her was thin, almost too thin, with the same dark hair and the most striking green eyes William had ever seen. He wore a worn-out superhero t-shirt and jeans that were too big for his small frame. Despite his obvious weariness, he clutched a small stuffed elephant tightly against his chest. "I'm sorry to bother you so early," the young woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you William Henderson?" William nodded slowly, his mind racing. How did this stranger know his name? What could she possibly want from him at this hour? "My name is Sarah," she continued, taking a deep breath as if gathering courage. "Sarah Mitchell. This is my son, Danny." She squeezed the little boy's hand gently. I think you might be his grandfather." The words hit William like a physical blow. He gripped the doorframe to steady himself, his coffee cup forgotten in his other hand. Behind him, he heard Kate's chair scrape against the kitchen floor, followed by her footsteps approaching. "What's wrong, honey?" Kate called out. "Who is it?" William couldn't find his voice to answer. He stared at the little boy, searching his features for any resemblance to someone he knew. The green eyes were familiar, hauntingly so. They reminded him of someone from long ago, someone he had tried hard to forget. "I know this must be a shock," Sarah continued quickly, as if afraid William might shut the door in her face. "But I didn't know where else to turn. Danny's father, my boyfriend, he told me about his biological father before he died. He said his name was Michael Henderson, and that Michael's parents lived on Maple Street in this town." Michael, the name that William and Kate had not spoken aloud in over 15 years. Their son, their only child, who had left home at 18 after a terrible fight and never returned. Despite their efforts to find him, to reconcile, Michael had seemingly vanished from their lives completely. Kate appeared beside William, her face curious but welcoming until she saw the expression on her husband's face. "William? What's happening?" Sarah shifted nervously, her grip on Danny's hand tightening. "Tommy, that was my boyfriend. He passed away last month in a car accident. He was Danny's stepfather, the only father Danny has ever known. Before he died, Tommy told me that if anything ever happened to him, I should try to find Danny's real family. The little boy looked up at William with those piercing green eyes, and, suddenly, William was transported back 33 years to when Michael was the same age, standing in almost the exact same spot, waiting to be picked up for his first day of kindergarten. The resemblance was undeniable now that he was looking for it. The shape of the nose, the stubborn set of the jaw, even the way the child held his head slightly tilted when he was uncertain. Michael was Danny's father? Kate whispered, her voice barely audible. Sarah nodded. Tommy said Michael died when Danny was just a baby. Some kind of accident. But he also said that Michael had parents who might want to know about Danny, about their grandson. Her voice broke slightly on the last word. William felt his knees grow weak. Michael was dead. Their son, whom they had spent years hoping would come home, would never walk through their door again. But here was his child, their grandchild, standing on their porch like an answer to prayers they had been afraid to voice. Kate stepped forward, her maternal instincts overriding her shock. "Oh, sweetheart," she said to Sarah, then knelt down to Danny's level. "Hello there, Danny. What a handsome boy you are." Danny shyly stepped closer to his mother, but his eyes remained fixed on Kate with curious interest. He lifted his stuffed elephant slightly. "This is Peanuts," he said quietly. "Tommy gave him to me." Kate's eyes filled with tears at the innocence in the child's voice. "Peanuts is very nice. I bet he's a good friend." William finally found his voice. How did Michael die?" Sarah's face crumpled slightly. "Tommy said it was a construction accident when Danny was about 8 months old. Michael was working on a building site, and there was some kind of collapse. Tommy said Michael had been trying to get his life together, that he wanted to be a good father to Danny." The revelation that Michael had tried to change, that he had wanted to be a good father, hit William like another blow. All those years of anger, a feeling like they had failed as parents, and Michael had been trying to make things right. If only they had known, if only they could have helped. Kate stood up slowly, her hand instinctively reaching out to smooth Danny's hair before she caught herself, and pulled back. "You said you didn't know where else to turn," she said gently to Sarah. "What do you mean?" Sarah's composure finally cracked, and tears began flowing down her cheeks. "I don't have any family left. My parents died when I was 17, and I've been on my own ever since. Tommy was all Danny and I had, and now." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry, I know this is a lot to spring on you. But I lost my job 2 weeks ago, and the rent is due, and I just thought maybe." She didn't need to finish the sentence. William could see the desperation in her eyes, the fear of a young mother facing an uncertain future with a small child depending on her. He could also see the pride that made this confession difficult for her. "Please," William said, stepping aside and opening the door wider. "Come in. Both of you. We need to talk about this properly." Sarah hesitated. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," Kate said firmly, her voice stronger now. "Your family. Come inside, and let's figure this out together." As Sarah and Danny stepped into their house, William closed the door behind them and leaned against it for a moment, trying to process everything that had just happened. In the span of 10 minutes, their quiet, predictable life had been completely turned upside down. They had lost a son they had already lost years ago, but gained a grandson they never knew existed, and a young woman who needed their help. Kate led Sarah and Danny into the living room, chattering softly to put them at ease. William watched from the doorway as Danny looked around with wide eyes, taking in the family photos on the mantelpiece, the comfortable old furniture, the warm atmosphere that Kate had always worked to create in their home. "Are you hungry, sweetheart?" Kate asked Danny. "I was just about to make breakfast." Danny looked to his mother for permission, and Sarah nodded. "That would be very kind," Sarah said. We didn't have dinner last night." The admission hung in the air like a physical presence. William felt something shift inside his chest, a protective instinct he hadn't felt in years awakening with surprising strength. This little boy, his grandson, was hungry. This young woman who had taken care of Michael's child was struggling and had nowhere else to turn. Kate disappeared into the kitchen, and William could hear her moving around, probably preparing enough breakfast to feed a small army. When she was emotional, she cooked. It was how she processed things, how she showed love and care when words weren't enough. "Please, sit down," William said, gesturing to the couch. Sarah perched on the edge of the cushions as if ready to flee at any moment, while Danny climbed up beside her, still clutching his elephant. "Tell me about Michael," William said, settling into his favorite chair across from them. What did Tommy tell you about him? Sarah took a shaky breath. Not a lot, honestly. Tommy said they worked together for a while before Michael died. He said Michael was trying to get clean, that he had some problems with drugs when he was younger, but was working hard to change for Danny's sake. He said Michael talked about his parents sometimes, about how much he regretted the way he left things with them. Each word was like a knife to William's heart. Michael had regretted leaving. He had been trying to get clean, to be a better person, a good father. And they had never known, never had the chance to help him or meet their grandson while Michael was alive. Tommy was a good man, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger as she talked about him. He loved Danny like his own son from the moment we met. He said it didn't matter who Danny's biological father was. Family is about love, not blood. But he also said that Danny deserved to know where he came from, to know about Michael's family if something ever happened to him. From the kitchen came the sounds and smells of Kate's breakfast preparation, bacon sizzling, coffee percolating, the warm scent of biscuits beginning to bake. Normal domestic sounds that seemed surreal given the extraordinary circumstances. Danny had been silent throughout the conversation, but now he spoke up in his small, clear voice. Tommy said my daddy was brave. He said my daddy wanted to make sure I was safe and loved, even though he couldn't stay with us. William felt tears sting his eyes. How did you explain to a 5-year-old that sometimes life was cruel and unfair, that good people died too young, that families were broken and scattered by forces beyond anyone's control? Your daddy was brave, William said, his voice thick with emotion. And he was right to want you to be safe and loved. Kate reappeared from the kitchen, her face flushed from the heat of cooking and emotion. Breakfast will be ready in just a few minutes, she announced. Danny, would you like to see some pictures of your daddy when he was little? Danny's face lit up with curiosity, and Sarah nodded encouragingly. Kate disappeared again and returned with a photo album, the same one she had looked through countless times over the years when missing Michael became too much to bear. She settled on the couch next to Danny and opened the album to the first page. This is your daddy when he was about your age, she said softly, pointing to a picture of Michael grinning at the camera, missing his 2 front teeth. Danny leaned in close, studying the photo intently. He looks like me, he said with wonder. He does, Kate agreed. You have his eyes and his smile. And see this? She pointed to another photo of Michael holding a stuffed bear. He loved stuffed animals too, just like you love peanuts. For the next few minutes, Kate shared memories through the photographs. Michael's first day of school, birthday parties, family vacations to the lake, Christmas mornings filled with wrapping paper and laughter. Sarah watched with tears in her eyes as her son discovered pieces of his heritage, while William observed from his chair, marveling at how quickly Kate had embraced her grandmother role. The timer in the kitchen chimed, breaking the spell of the photo session. Breakfast is ready, Kate announced, closing the album gently. Let's go eat and talk some more. As they moved to the kitchen, William helped Sarah carry their few belongings, just a small backpack and a paper bag that looked like it contained all their worldly possessions. The sight of how little they had reinforced his growing determination to help them, no matter what it took. The kitchen table, which usually accommodated just William and Kate's quiet morning routine, seemed to come alive with the addition of Sarah and Danny. Kate had outdone herself with breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh biscuits, orange juice for Danny, and coffee for the adults. She fussed over Danny's plate, making sure he had plenty to eat, while engaging Sarah in gentle conversation about Danny's likes and dislikes, his favorite activities, his personality traits. He's very smart, Sarah said, watching with amazement as Danny politely devoured his breakfast. He taught himself to read before he turned 4. Tommy used to say Danny got that from his father's side. Michael was always bright, William said, sometimes too bright for his own good. He questioned everything, challenged every rule, wanted to understand why the world worked the way it did. Is that why he left? Sarah asked quietly. William and Kate exchanged a look across the table. How much should they share? How much did this young woman need to know about their failures as parents, about the fights, and the harsh words that had driven their son away? We had different ideas about his future, William said carefully. Michael wanted to make his own way in the world, and we wanted him to go to college, to have security. We pushed too hard, and he pushed back. One night, things were said that couldn't be taken back, and he left. We never stopped loving him, Kate added quickly. We just didn't know how to show it in a way he could understand at the time. Danny finished his breakfast and asked quietly if he could look at the photo album again. Kate immediately retrieved it for him. and he settled in the living room, carefully turning pages and studying each picture of his father. With Danny occupied, the adults could speak more freely. Sarah wrapped her hands around her coffee cup as if drawing warmth from it, and took a deep breath. "I need to be honest with you about our situation," she said. "It's bad. Really bad. After Tommy died, I couldn't keep up with all the bills on just my salary. I lost my job at the diner because I had to take time off for the funeral and to handle Tommy's affairs. The landlord gave me notice last week. We've been staying in my car for 3 nights. The confession hung heavy in the morning air. William felt ashamed that while they had been living comfortably in their warm house, their grandson had been sleeping in a car. Our lease was in Tommy's name, so I couldn't take it over without proving I could pay the rent, Sarah continued. I've applied for assistance, but the waiting lists are long. I've been looking for work, but it's hard when you don't have an address or reliable childcare. Kate reached across the table and covered Sarah's hand with her own. You don't have to explain anything to us. What matters is that you're here now, and you're safe. I don't want charity, Sarah said quickly, her pride evident. I thought maybe you might want to know Danny, and maybe we could figure out some kind of arrangement. I could pay you back anything you help us with. I'm a hard worker. I just need a chance to get back on my feet. William looked at this young woman who had been thrust into an impossible situation, but was still thinking about maintaining her dignity and independence. She reminded him of Kate when they were young and struggling, proud, determined, unwilling to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. What kind of work did you do? Kate asked. Mostly restaurant work, waitressing, some cooking. I'm good with people, and I learned fast. I was studying business management at community college before my parents died, but I had to drop out to work full-time. Sarah's voice took on a wistful tone. I always plan to go back someday. From the living room came the sound of Danny's soft voice, apparently talking to Peanuts as he looked at the pictures. William could hear him explaining who was in each photo, creating stories about his father based on the images he was seeing. Sarah, William said, making a decision that felt both terrifying and absolutely right. What if I told you that you and Danny could stay here for as long as you need? Not as charity, but as family. You could help Kate around the house, maybe look for work in town. We could watch Danny when you need to go to interviews. Sarah's eyes widened with surprise and hope, quickly followed by wariness. I couldn't ask you to do that. You barely know us. You didn't ask, Kate pointed out. We're offering. And William's right, your family. Danny is our grandson, which makes you part of our family too. But what if it doesn't work out? What if Danny is too much trouble, or I can't find a job, or... Sarah's voice trailed off as her fears overtook her words. Then, we'll figure it out together, William said firmly. That's what families do. They stick together through the hard times and help each other find solutions. Kate nodded enthusiastically. We have plenty of room. The upstairs has 2 bedrooms that have been empty for years. We could fix up one for Danny and one for you. It would be nice to have life in this house again. Sarah's composure finally crumbled completely, and she put her face in her hands and wept, tears of relief, gratitude, exhaustion, and grief all mixed together. Kate immediately went to her side, wrapping her arms around the younger woman and murmuring soothing words. I'm sorry, Sarah sobbed. I've been so scared, so tired of trying to be strong for Danny when I don't know what we're going to do. I never expected. I hoped maybe you might want to see him sometimes, but I never imagined. You don't have to be strong all by yourself anymore, Kate said softly. We're here now. Let us help. From the living room, Danny's voice called out, Mama? Are you okay? Sarah quickly wiped her eyes and called back. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just talking to your grandparents. The word grandparents hit William with unexpected force. He was a grandfather. This beautiful, intelligent little boy was his family, his blood, his second chance to do better than he had done with Michael. Danny appeared in the kitchen doorway, still holding Peanuts, his young face serious with concern. Are we staying here? He asked with the directness that only children possess. Sarah looked questioningly at William and Kate, who both nodded encouragingly. Would you like to stay here for a while? Sarah asked her son. Grandma Kate and Grandpa William have invited us to be their guests. Danny considered this carefully, then walked over to William. Do you have any toys? He asked practically. William chuckled, the first genuine laugh he had felt all morning. I don't right now, but I bet we could find some. Would you like to help me build things in my workshop? I have tools and wood, and we could make toys together. Danny's eyes lit up. Tommy showed me how to use a hammer. He said I was very good at building things. Then, you and I are going to get along just fine, William said, feeling a warmth spread through his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. Kate clapped her hands together. Well, if it's settled, we should get you two moved in properly. Sarah, why don't you and I go get your things from your car while the boys get acquainted? As Kate and Sarah headed outside, William found himself alone with his grandson for the first time. Danny climbed into Kate's chair and looked at him seriously. Are you really my grandpa? Danny asked. I am, William confirmed. Your daddy Michael was my son. Was he nice? William thought about how to answer that question honestly, but appropriately for a 5-year-old. He was very nice, but sometimes he made mistakes. All people make mistakes, even grown-ups. The important thing is that he loved you very much, even though he couldn't stay to take care of you himself. Danny nodded as if this made perfect sense to him. That's what Tommy said too. He said sometimes people have to go away, but that doesn't mean they don't love you. Tommy sounds like he was very wise, William said. He was the best dad ever, Danny said matter-of-factly. But he said it was okay to have more than one dad if you needed them. He said families could be big or small, and they didn't always look the same. Out of the mouths of babes, William thought. This little boy had wisdom that many adults never achieved. Kate and Sarah returned with their belongings, which turned out to be even less than William had imagined. Just a few changes of clothes, some basic toiletries, a few books, and Danny's toys stuffed into the small backpack and paper bag. Is this everything? Kate asked gently, trying not to sound shocked at how little they had. We had to leave most of our things when we couldn't pay the rent, Sarah explained. I kept only what would fit in the car and what Danny couldn't live without. Well, we'll have to go shopping then, Kate declared. Danny will need proper clothes for school, and you'll need interview clothes for job hunting. I can't let you spend money on us, Sarah protested weakly. You're not letting us do anything, Kate said firmly. We're choosing to do it. Besides, I haven't had anyone to shop for in years. You'd be doing me a favor by letting me spoil you both a little. The rest of the morning was spent getting Sarah and Danny settled into their new temporary home. Kate threw herself into the task with enthusiasm that William hadn't seen in years, digging out extra blankets and pillows, clearing dresser drawers, and making lists of everything they would need to make the rooms comfortable. Danny was fascinated by the house, exploring every corner with the fearless curiosity of a child. He was particularly interested in William's workshop in the garage, where tools hung neatly on pegboards and half-finished projects sat on the workbench. Can we really build something together? Danny asked, running his small fingers along the smooth surface of a piece of wood. Absolutely, William promised. What would you like to build first? A house for Peanuts, Danny said without hesitation. He doesn't have anywhere to sleep except with me. And Tommy said everyone should have their own special place. William felt his throat tighten with emotion. Even in suggesting a project, this child was thinking of others before himself. A house for Peanuts sounds like an excellent first project. As the day wore on, William found himself watching his grandson with growing amazement. Danny was polite without being submissive, curious without being destructive, and remarkably resilient considering everything he had been through. When Kate suggested they go to the store to buy some basic necessities, Danny asked if they could get food for the birds too, because he had noticed the empty bird feeder in the backyard. Sarah remained somewhat overwhelmed by their generosity, but gradually began to relax as she realized that William and Kate's offer was genuine. She helped Kate with household tasks, sharing stories about Danny's milestones and achievements, slowly opening up about their life with Tommy and the challenges they had faced. By evening, as they sat down to Kate's homemade pot roast dinner, it almost felt as if they had been living together for years instead of hours. Danny chattered about the bird feeder they had filled and the plans he and William had made for Peanut's house, while Sarah and Kate discussed practical matters like finding Danny a pediatrician and enrolling him in the local kindergarten. After dinner, Kate ran a bath for Danny, while Sarah unpacked their few belongings into the dresser drawers. William stood in the doorway of what was now Danny's room, watching his wife fuss over their grandson's bedtime routine with practiced maternal care. He's a good boy, William said when Sarah joined him in the hallway. He is, Sarah agreed. Sometimes I think he's too good, too mature for his age. He's been through so much already. He's resilient, William observed. That's a gift, but it's also something he learned from watching you handle difficult situations with grace. Sarah blushed at the compliment. I don't always feel very graceful. Most of the time I feel like I'm just barely keeping everything together. That's what being a parent is, William said softly. The feeling that you're making it up as you go along and hoping for the best. Kate, and I felt that way with Michael, especially after we realized we were making mistakes but didn't know how to fix them. From the bathroom came the sound of Kate and Danny's voices, Kate reading a story while Danny soaked in the tub. It was a sound that brought back memories of similar evenings 30 years ago when Michael was small and their family felt complete. Do you think we can make this work? Sarah asked quietly. All of us living together, I mean. I don't want to disrupt your lives or cause problems between you and Kate. William turned to look at this young woman who had walked into their lives that morning carrying their grandson and their second chance at being grandparents. Sarah, our lives were already disrupted the day Michael left and never came back. Having you and Danny here doesn't disrupt anything. It fills a hole that's been empty for 15 years. Later that night, after Danny had been tucked into bed and Sarah had retired to her room to read, William and Kate sat in their living room processing the day's events. I can't believe how much our lives have changed in one day, Kate said, curled up against William's side on the sofa. Good change, William said, wrapping his arm around her. The best kind of change. He looks so much like Michael did at that age, Kate murmured. But he's different too. Calmer, maybe. Less angry at the world. Sarah's done a good job with him, William said. And it sounds like Tommy did too. Michael was lucky that his son ended up with people who loved him. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts about the day's revelations and the future that lay ahead. Finally, Kate spoke again. Do you think Michael would be proud of how Danny turned out? William considered the question carefully. I think Michael would be grateful that Danny found his way to us, just like we should be grateful that Sarah was brave enough to bring him here. I already love him, Kate confessed. Is that crazy? To love a child you just met? If it's crazy, then I'm crazy too, William admitted. The moment I saw him standing on our porch, something just clicked into place. Like a piece of my heart that I didn't know was missing suddenly, found its way home. Upstairs, they could hear the soft murmur of Sarah's voice as she said goodnight to Danny, followed by the gentle closing of bedroom doors. Their house, which had been so quiet for so many years, was filled once again with the sounds of family. As they prepared for bed themselves, William reflected on the strange turns life could take. That morning, he had been a man with a quiet, predictable routine and a hole in his heart where his son used to be. Tonight, he was a grandfather with a chance to love and guide a child who carried pieces of Michael in his eyes and his smile. The door that had opened that morning had revealed more than just visitors on their porch. It had opened up possibilities that William and Kate had thought were lost forever, the chance to nurture and protect, to share their knowledge and experience, to love unconditionally and be loved in return. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they navigated the practicalities of their expanded household. There would be paperwork to complete, schools to contact, jobs to find, and adjustments to make. But tonight, William fell asleep feeling more hopeful and purposeful than he had in years, knowing that their family was whole again in a way he had never expected but had always yearned for. The first week of their new living arrangement passed in a blur of activity and adjustment. William found himself waking earlier each morning, not from routine but from genuine excitement about the day ahead. The house that had felt too quiet for years now buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the endless questions of a 5-year-old discovering his heritage. Danny proved to be remarkably adaptable, settling into their household rhythms with an ease that both impressed and concerned Sarah. She worried that his quick adjustment meant he was suppressing his grief about Tommy, but Kate assured her that children were naturally resilient and that Danny's openness was a sign of feeling safe rather than emotional suppression. The first major challenge came on Thursday morning when Sarah announced that she had a job interview at a local restaurant. I don't want to leave Danny with you so soon, Sarah said nervously, adjusting her borrowed interview outfit for the third time. Kate had insisted on taking her shopping for professional clothes, and though Sarah had protested the expense, she couldn't deny that she felt more confident in the crisp white blouse and navy skirt. Nonsense, Kate said firmly, braiding Danny's hair as he sat patiently at the kitchen table. We're his grandparents. This is exactly what grandparents are for. William watched the exchange with amusement. In just 5 days, Kate had transformed into the grandmother she was meant to be, fussing over Danny's nutrition, reading him bedtime stories, and already making plans for his first day of school. She had thrown herself into the role with an enthusiasm that made William's heart swell with love for his wife all over again. What if he needs something, and I'm not here? Sarah persisted, her anxiety evident. Then, we'll handle it, William said calmly. Sarah, you raised him for 5 years. Trust that you taught him well enough to be comfortable with us for a few hours. Danny looked up from his cereal. I'll be good, Mama. Grandpa William promised to show me how to measure wood for Peanut's house. The simple confidence in the child's voice seemed to ease Sarah's worries. She kissed Danny goodbye, accepted Kate's encouraging hug, and headed off to her interview with a mixture of hope and nervousness that William remembered well from his own young adult struggles. Alone with Danny for the first extended period, William felt a momentary panic. What if the child got hurt? What if he cried for his mother? What if William said or did something wrong? But Danny's matter-of-fact acceptance of the situation quickly put William at ease. Can we work on the house now? Danny asked, already sliding down from his chair and heading toward the door to the garage. In the workshop, William discovered that Danny had inherited more than just Michael's green eyes. The boy had a natural aptitude for understanding how things fit together, how measurements worked, and how tools were used safely. He listened intently to instructions, asked thoughtful questions, and showed a patience unusual for his age. Tommy taught me that you have to measure twice and cut once, Danny said seriously, holding the ruler steady while William marked the wood. He said mistakes happen when you hurry. Tommy was a smart man, William said, touched by the way Danny honored his stepfather's memory by passing on his lessons. That's one of the most important rules in carpentry. As they worked together, Danny talked freely about his life with Tommy and Sarah, painting a picture of a loving but financially strained household. Tommy had worked construction and odd jobs, teaching Danny practical skills despite his young age. Sarah had worked long hours but always made time for bedtime stories and homework help. Were you sad when my daddy died? Danny asked suddenly, his small hands stilling on the sandpaper he had been carefully rubbing along a piece of wood. The directness of the question caught William off guard, but he realized that Danny deserved an honest answer. Yes, I was very sad. But I was also sad before he died, because we hadn't talked to each other for a long time. Why didn't you talk to him? William set down his tools and knelt to Danny's level. Sometimes grown-ups have arguments about things that seem very important at the time, but later they realize weren't important at all. Your daddy and I had an argument like that, and we were both too proud to say we were sorry. Danny considered this seriously. Tommy said being proud was okay, but being too proud was bad. He said sorry was the most important word in the whole world. Tommy was right about that too, William said, his voice thick with emotion. How different things might have been if he and Michael had learned that lesson before it was too late. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, Danny absorbed in his task of sanding while William cut and assembled the frame for the elephant's house. The rhythm of their shared labor felt natural, filling a space in William's heart that he hadn't realized was empty. Kate appeared in the garage doorway around noon, carrying sandwiches and juice boxes. How are my carpenters doing? She asked cheerfully. Grandpa William is teaching me to make corners that match, Danny announced proudly, showing her the piece he had been sanding. See how smooth it is. Kate examined the wood with exaggerated seriousness. That's excellent work, Danny. Peanuts is going to have the best house in the neighborhood. As they sat on upturned milk crates eating their lunch, Kate shared her morning activities. She had called the local elementary school to inquire about enrollment procedures, researched pediatricians who accepted new patients, and made a list of activities and programs available for children Danny's age. I hope I'm not overstepping, she said to William. I just want to be prepared for whatever Sarah needs. You're being exactly what they need, William assured her. A grandmother who cares enough to plan ahead. Danny finished his sandwich and wandered around the garage, examining William's tools and projects with respectful curiosity. He stopped in front of a half-finished rocking chair, running his small hand along the curved armrest. What's this going to be? He asked. It was going to be a rocking chair for your grandma, Kate, William said. But I haven't worked on it in a while. Why not? William glanced at Kate, who nodded encouragingly. Sometimes when you're sad for a long time, it's hard to make beautiful things. I started that chair when I was hoping your daddy would come home someday, maybe with a family of his own. When he didn't come home, I lost interest in finishing it. Danny studied the chair thoughtfully. But now we're here. Maybe you could finish it now. The simple logic of a child's perspective hit William like a revelation. Danny was right. The chair had been started with hope for the future, and now that future had arrived in a way William never could have imagined. Maybe I could, William said softly. Would you like to help me finish it? Could I really help? I'm still learning. The best way to learn is by doing, William said. And I think your grandma Kate would like a rocking chair that we built together. Kate wiped tears from her eyes, overwhelmed by the sweetness of the moment and the symbolism of completing something that had been started in hope and abandoned in despair. Sarah returned from her interview just as they were cleaning up from their woodworking session. Her face was flushed with excitement, and she practically bounced through the door. "I got the job," she announced. "I start Monday morning. It's just waitressing, but it's full-time with good tips, and they said if I work out well, there might be opportunities to learn other positions." Kate immediately enveloped Sarah in a congratulatory hug while Danny cheered and clapped his hands. William felt a surge of pride in this young woman who was working so hard to rebuild her life while caring for a small child. "Tell us everything," Kate demanded, leading Sarah to the kitchen table for a proper debriefing. The job was at Mel's Diner, a local institution that served everything from breakfast to late-night coffee and pie. The owner, Mel Rodriguez, Mrs. Rodriguez's son from next door, had been immediately impressed with Sarah's experience and work ethic. The hours would be 7 to 3 on weekdays, which meant Danny could start school, and Sarah would be home in time to pick him up. "They even said they have a policy of promoting from within," Sarah said, her eyes bright with hope. "Maybe someday I could work my way up to assistant manager or even take some business classes at night." "That sounds wonderful," William said. "And we'll be happy to help with Danny whenever you need us." "I can't keep depending on you for everything," Sarah said, her independence asserting itself again. "You're not depending on us," Kate pointed out. "We're all depending on each other. That's how families work." That evening, they celebrated Sarah's new job with a special dinner that Kate insisted on preparing. As they sat around the table, sharing stories and making plans for the week ahead, William marveled at how natural this felt. It was as if the four of them had been meant to find each other, to create this unconventional but loving family unit. Danny had grown comfortable enough to share more details about his life before coming to them, painting a clearer picture of the struggles Sarah had faced as a single mother. He talked about times when there wasn't enough food, when they had to move from one apartment to another because of job changes or rent increases, when Sarah would work double shifts and he would stay with whatever neighbor was available. "Mama always made sure I was safe," Danny said matter-of-factly. "Even when she was scared or sad, she would sing to me so I wouldn't be scared too." Sarah's eyes filled with tears at her son's simple assessment of her efforts to protect him from their hardships. "Your mama is very brave," Kate said gently. "Taking care of someone you love even when you're scared yourself is one of the bravest things anyone can do." The weekend brought new adventures as William and Kate introduced Danny to their routines and favorite local spots. They visited the farmer's market on Saturday morning, where Danny was fascinated by the variety of fresh produce and homemade goods. Kate let him pick out vegetables for dinner while William watched him interact with the vendors, noting how polite and well-mannered he was despite his young age. At the hardware store, where William was a regular customer, Danny was treated like a celebrity when word spread that Bill Henderson finally had a grandson to share his woodworking knowledge with. Old-timers who had known William for decades offered advice about teaching children to use tools safely, and the store manager gave Danny a small apron and safety glasses for his apprenticeship. Sunday brought their first real test when Danny woke up crying in the middle of the night, calling for Tommy. Sarah tried to comfort him, but his grief had finally surfaced in the form of a nightmare that left him inconsolable. William and Kate found Sarah pacing the hallway, holding Danny while he sobbed against her shoulder. "He had a bad dream about the car accident," Sarah whispered, her own tears flowing freely. "He wasn't even in the car when it happened, but he keeps having dreams about it." Without hesitation, Kate reached for Danny. "Come here, sweetheart. Let Grandma Kate hold you for a while." To everyone's surprise, Danny went to Kate willingly, his sobs gradually quieting as she rocked him gently and hummed a soft lullaby. William put his arm around Sarah, offering silent support as they watched Kate work her maternal magic. "Tommy used to sing to me," Danny whispered when his crying had subsided to hiccups. "What did he sing?" Kate asked softly. Danny hummed a few bars of a song that William recognized as an old folk tune. Kate picked up the melody, her voice joining Danny's in a duet that was both heartbreaking and healing. They ended up having an impromptu midnight family gathering in the living room, with hot chocolate and quiet conversation about missing people they loved. William talked about missing his own parents. Kate shared memories of her sister who had died young, and Sarah spoke about her parents and how much she wished they could have met Danny. "Missing people is okay," Kate told Danny as he curled up between her and William on the sofa. "It means we love them very much. But The people we miss would want us to be happy and to love the people who are still here with us. Like you and Grandpa William? Danny asked. Exactly like us, Kate confirmed. Tommy and your daddy would want you to be happy with us. By the time they all returned to their bedrooms, something had shifted in their family dynamic. The crisis had brought them closer together, establishing trust and emotional bonds that might have taken months to develop under normal circumstances. Monday morning brought the reality of new routines. Sarah left for her first day of work with a mixture of excitement and nervousness, while Kate prepared to take Danny to register for kindergarten. William had arranged to take a personal day from his job at the county office to help with the school enrollment process. The local elementary school was a small, friendly institution where everyone seemed to know everyone else. The principal, Mrs. Thompson, was a motherly woman in her 50s who immediately put Danny at ease with her warm smile and genuine interest in his experiences. So you've moved here from across the state, she said, reviewing the enrollment forms. That must have been quite an adventure. My mama got a job at Mel's Diner, Danny said proudly. And my grandparents are taking care of me while she works. Mrs. Thompson's eyes flickered with interest at this family arrangement, but she was too professional to pry. Instead, she focused on assessing Danny's readiness for kindergarten through informal conversation and simple activities. It quickly became apparent that Danny was academically advanced for his age. He could read at a second-grade level, had mastered basic math concepts, and demonstrated problem-solving skills that impressed both Mrs. Thompson and his assigned teacher, Miss Garcia. Has he had any formal preschool education? Miss Garcia asked Kate and William. His mother has been teaching him at home, Kate explained. She was a college student before circumstances changed, and she's always prioritized his education. Well, she's done an excellent job, Mrs. Thompson said. Danny, would you like to see your classroom and meet some of your new classmates? Danny's tour of the school went smoothly, and he seemed comfortable with the environment and excited about starting classes. On the way home, he chattered about the books he had seen in the classroom library and the art supplies that would be available for projects. Are you nervous about starting school? William asked as they pulled into their driveway. A little, Danny admitted. But Miss Garcia seems nice, and she said I could bring peanuts on the first day if I wanted to. That was very understanding of her, Kate said. I think you're going to do just fine. The afternoon was spent finishing Peanut's house, a project that had grown more elaborate as Danny's interest and skills developed. What had started as a simple box had evolved into a detailed dollhouse-sized dwelling with windows, a door, and even a tiny front porch. It's perfect, Danny declared as they applied the final coat of paint. Peanuts is going to love it. That evening, Sarah returned from her first day of work tired but triumphant. The job had gone well, her fellow employees had been welcoming, and the tips had been better than expected. Mel said I'm a natural, she reported with pride. He's already talking about training me to work the breakfast shift, which pays more because it's busier. And how did school registration go? She asked, settling into her place at the dinner table that was becoming comfortably familiar. Danny launched into an enthusiastic description of his school visit, complete with details about his teacher, his classroom, and his plans for his first day. Sarah listened with tears in her eyes, overwhelmed by how well things were working out for them. I can't believe how different our lives are from just a week ago, she said to William and Kate after Danny had gone to bed. A week ago, we were sleeping in my car, and I didn't know where our next meal was coming from. Now Danny's excited about starting school. I have a job I actually enjoy, and we have a real home with people who care about us. This is your home for as long as you want it to be, William assured her. We're not doing you a favor. You're giving us the chance to be grandparents, to have a family again. You're the ones doing us the favor. As the second week progressed, their routines became more established. Sarah proved to be an excellent employee, quickly earning the respect of her co-workers and regular customers. Danny's first days of school went smoothly, with Miss Garcia reporting that he was adjusting well socially and was clearly ready for the academic challenges of kindergarten. William found himself looking forward to Danny's arrival home each afternoon, eager to hear about his school day and to continue their ongoing projects in the workshop. They had moved on from Peanut's house to working on the rocking chair, with Danny carefully sanding pieces under William's supervision while asking endless questions about woodworking techniques. Kate threw herself into creating a stable, nurturing environment for Danny, ensuring he had healthy snacks after school, helping with homework, and establishing bedtime routines that provided security and comfort. She also made sure Sarah felt supported in her new job, preparing meals that Sarah could take for lunch, and handling household tasks so Sarah could focus on work and spending quality time with Danny in the evenings. But it was the small moments that truly solidified their family bonds. Danny asking William to read him a bedtime story when Sarah was working a late shift. Sarah helping Kate plan a family garden for the spring. William teaching Danny to change a tire on Sarah's car, emphasizing that knowledge was power and that everyone should know how to take care of themselves. One evening, as they sat in the living room after dinner, Danny looked up from the puzzle he was working on and made an observation that stopped all adult conversation. "I think Tommy would like you," he said to William and Kate. "He would be happy that we found you." The simple statement carried profound meaning. Danny was not only accepting his new circumstances, but finding ways to honor Tommy's memory while embracing his new family relationships. "I think we would have liked Tommy too," Kate said gently. "Anyone who loved you and your mama the way he did must have been a very special person." "He was," Danny said matter-of-factly. Then, returned to his puzzle as if the moment hadn't just brought tears to every adult eye in the room. Later that night, as William and Kate prepared for bed, they reflected on how dramatically their lives had changed. "I feel like I'm finally living the life I was meant to live," Kate confessed. "For years, I felt like something was missing, like I was just going through the motions. Now I feel purposeful again." "I know what you mean," William said. "When Michael left, I thought our chance to be good parents was over. Now I feel like we're getting a second chance to do better." "We are doing better," Kate said confidently. "And part of that is because we're older and wiser, but part of it is because Sarah has already done such a good job with Danny. She's made it easy for us to love him." As they settled into sleep, the sounds of their now full house around them, William reflected on the mysterious ways life could surprise you. 2 weeks ago, he had been a man with regrets about the past and resignation about the future. Tonight, he was a grandfather with responsibilities, hopes, and dreams that extended far beyond his own quiet existence. The door that had opened that Tuesday morning had indeed revealed more than visitors. It had revealed a new chapter of their lives that was richer, more challenging, and infinitely more rewarding than anything they could have imagined. And this was just the beginning point. 3 weeks into their new arrangement, William was beginning to understand that love could grow exponentially under the right circumstances. What had started as a tentative offer of help to strangers had evolved into something far deeper and more complex than he had anticipated. The transformation was most evident in Kate, who seemed to have found her true calling as a grandmother. She had thrown herself into the role with an enthusiasm that bordered on obsession, researching child development, planning educational activities, and creating photo albums to document every milestone of Danny's adjustment to his new life. "I want him to know how much he's loved," Kate explained when William gently teased her about taking pictures of Danny eating breakfast. "Someday, when he's older, I want him to be able to look back and see evidence of how happy we all were together." The evidence was certainly abundant. Their refrigerator had become a gallery of Danny's artwork from school, thank you cards he had made for Kate and William, and photographs of their weekend adventures. The house that had been so quiet for years now echoed with the sounds of a child's laughter, Kate's patient explanations of everything from why leaves change color to how rainbows are formed, and William's gentle instruction in the workshop. But it was the subtle changes that moved William most. The way Kate hummed while she cooked dinner, knowing she was preparing food for a child who appreciated every bite. The way she carefully saved funny stories from Danny's day to share with Sarah when she came home from work. The way she had started planning for holidays and birthdays with an excitement that reminded William of their early marriage, when they had dreamed of filling their house with children. Sarah, too, was flourishing in ways that went beyond her job success. The constant worry lines that had etched her young face were beginning to fade, replaced by a confidence that came from knowing her son was safe and loved during the hours she had to be away. She had started talking about the future in terms of possibilities rather than survival, mentioning plans to take evening classes and maybe eventually open her own restaurant. "Mel has been teaching me about the business side of things," Sarah told them over dinner on a Friday evening. "He says I have good instincts for what customers want and how to manage staff efficiently. He's even hinted that if I continue doing well, he might consider making me assistant manager by next summer." "That's wonderful," Kate said, serving Danny a second helping of her famous meatloaf. "You've always been smart about business. Remember how you figured out the best system for organizing Danny's toys and clothes when you first moved in?" The compliment made Sarah glow with pride. In the weeks since arriving at their door, she had revealed herself to be not just a devoted mother, but an intelligent young woman with natural leadership abilities and a strong work ethic. William could see why Mel Rodriguez had been so quick to recognize her potential. Danny, meanwhile, had settled into kindergarten with remarkable ease. His teacher, Miss Garcia, reported that he was not only academically advanced but also showed unusual emotional maturity in his interactions with other children. He had become something of a mentor to a shy little girl named Emma, patiently helping her with reading and including her in playground activities. Danny has a gift for making other people feel comfortable, Miss Garcia explained during his first parent-teacher conference. He seems to understand when someone is scared or lonely, and he knows exactly how to help them feel better. William and Kate had attended the conference with Sarah, all three of them beaming with pride as Miss Garcia described Danny's progress and social skills. The teacher had been particularly impressed with the story Danny had written about his family, which included detailed descriptions of his grandparents and their importance in his daily life. He clearly feels very secure and loved, Miss Garcia had concluded. Whatever you're all doing at home, please keep doing it. The weekends had become William's favorite time, when he could spend uninterrupted hours with Danny in the workshop. Their projects had grown more sophisticated as Danny's skills and attention span developed. They had completed the rocking chair for Kate, which now held a place of honor in the living room and was used daily for bedtime story sessions. They had built a proper toolbox for Danny, sized to his small hands, but containing real tools that he could use safely under supervision. Their latest project was more ambitious, a treehouse in the old oak tree in the backyard. William had been initially hesitant about the complexity of the undertaking, but Danny's enthusiasm and careful attention to safety protocols had convinced him that the boy was ready for the challenge. "We need to make sure the platform is completely level," Danny said seriously, holding the level steady while William adjusted the support beams. "If it's not level, everything else will be wrong." The boy's precision and patience reminded William so much of Michael at that age that it sometimes took his breath away. But, unlike Michael, who had been impatient and eager to move on to the next project before completing the current one, Danny showed a methodical approach that would serve him well throughout his life. "Where did you learn to be so careful about details?" William asked as they measured and remeasured the spacing between support joists. "Tommy taught me," Danny replied matter-of-factly. "He said that taking time to do things right the first time saved you from having to fix them later. He said shortcuts usually just made more work." The wisdom of the man who had raised Danny continued to impress William. Tommy had clearly understood that teaching a child patience and precision was more valuable than teaching him to work quickly. Every lesson Danny shared from Tommy's instruction revealed a thoughtful, caring stepfather who had prepared his son well for life's challenges. One Saturday afternoon, as they worked on installing the treehouse walls, Danny asked a question that caught William off guard. "Grandpa William, do you think my daddy Michael would have taught me to build things too?" William paused in his hammering, considering how to answer honestly without causing pain. "I think he would have, Danny. Your daddy always loved working with his hands, even when he was little. He used to help me with projects around the house, and he was good at it. Was he patient like you are with me?" William thought about Michael's impatient energy, his constant desire to rush ahead to the next exciting thing. "Your daddy was very smart and very capable, but patience wasn't his strongest quality. I think having you might have taught him to be more patient, though. Children have a way of teaching their parents important lessons." Danny nodded thoughtfully, accepting this assessment of his father without judgment. "Tommy said that everyone has different gifts. Maybe my daddy's gift was being brave and smart, and Tommy's gift was being patient and kind." "That sounds like Tommy was a wise man," William said, touched by the child's ability to see the best in everyone who had loved him. The treehouse project became a neighborhood attraction as word spread about William and Danny's ambitious construction. Other children began stopping by to watch their progress, and several parents commented on how nice it was to see such a positive relationship between grandfather and grandson. Mrs. Rodriguez, their next-door neighbor and Mel's mother, was particularly vocal in her approval. "That boy is a blessing," she told Kate over the fence one afternoon. "You can see how much joy he brings to your household. And that's Sarah, she's a good worker. Mel says she's the best waitress he's had in years." The community's acceptance of their unconventional family arrangement was both heartwarming and important for Danny's sense of belonging. He was not just William and Kate's grandson in their household. He was recognized as part of their family by everyone who knew them. But it was the private moments that truly defined their growing bonds. Danny's habit of climbing into William's lap while he read the evening newspaper, asking questions about the pictures, and trying to sound out words he didn't recognize. Kate's patient teaching sessions at the kitchen table, helping Danny with homework, and engaging him in conversations that encouraged him to think critically about what he was learning. Sarah's growing confidence in leaving Danny with his grandparents when work demanded flexibility, knowing that he would be safe, happy, and well cared for. The way all four of them had settled into dinner-table conversations that ranged from Danny's school day to Sarah's work experiences to Kate's volunteer activities to William's observations about current events. The fourth week brought their first real challenge as a family unit. Danny came home from school on a Wednesday with a notice about the upcoming Halloween celebration, including a costume parade and classroom party. He was excited about participating, but worried about the expense of a costume. All the other kids are talking about their costumes, Danny told Sarah that evening. Emma's mom is making her a princess dress, and Tyler's dad is helping him build a robot costume. Sarah's face fell slightly as she read the school notice. Even with her new job, money was still tight, and unexpected expenses like Halloween costumes felt overwhelming. "We'll figure something out, sweetheart," Sarah said. But William could hear the worry in her voice. Kate, however, was already formulating a plan. "Danny, what would you like to be for Halloween?" she asked. "Could I be a carpenter?" Danny asked hopefully. "Like Grandpa William? I could wear my work apron and carry some tools." "I think that's a wonderful idea," Kate said immediately. "And I think Grandpa William might be able to help us put together a very authentic carpenter costume." The next few days were spent assembling Danny's costume with the same attention to detail they applied to their woodworking projects. William contributed a child-sized tool belt and a few safe tools that Danny could actually use. Kate made a carpenter's hat from sturdy fabric and ensured that Danny's work clothes were clean and properly fitted. Sarah contributed a small clipboard where Danny could keep work orders for his imaginary construction projects. The costume was a huge success at school, with Miss Garcia declaring it one of the most creative and authentic costumes she had ever seen. Danny beamed with pride as he explained to his classmates how real carpenters used each tool and what kinds of projects he and his grandfather were working on together. But the real triumph came when several other parents complimented Sarah on the costume's creativity and asked how she had managed to put together something so detailed. "It was a family project," Sarah said proudly. "Danny's grandparents helped us make it special." The easy way she referred to William and Kate as Danny's grandparents, and the pride in her voice when she talked about their collaborative effort, made William realize how completely they had all accepted their roles in this new family structure. November brought new routines and deeper connections. The weather turned colder, driving more of their activities indoors and creating opportunities for different kinds of bonding. Kate taught Danny to bake cookies, patiently guiding his small hands through measuring ingredients and explaining the science behind why certain combinations created specific results. Sarah started joining them for evening activities more frequently, her confidence in her work situation allowing her to relax and engage more fully in family life. She had revealed herself to be an excellent storyteller, entertaining them all with tales from the diner that were both funny and insightful about human nature. "You should write these stories down," Kate suggested one evening after Sarah had regaled them with a particularly amusing account of a customer who had very specific requirements for how his coffee should be prepared. "I used to write in college," Sarah admitted. "I had dreams of maybe becoming a journalist someday. But life got complicated, and I put that aside." "Life doesn't have to stay complicated forever," William pointed out. "Maybe this is the right time to pick up some of those old dreams." The suggestion seemed to plant a seed in Sarah's mind. Over the following days, William noticed her jotting down notes about interesting customers, amusing conversations, and observations about small-town life. She was naturally curious about people and had a gift for seeing the humor and humanity in everyday situations. Danny's education was progressing exceptionally well, with Miss Garcia recommending that he be tested for the gifted program. His reading level had advanced to third grade, and his mathematical understanding was similarly accelerated. But more importantly, he was developing social skills and emotional intelligence that served him well in group settings. "He's becoming a leader among his classmates," Miss Garcia reported during their November conference. "He doesn't just excel academically. He helps create an inclusive, supportive classroom environment. The other children trust him and look up to him." The report filled all three adults with pride, but also with a growing sense of responsibility. Danny's potential was becoming apparent, and they wanted to ensure that he had every opportunity to develop his gifts while remaining grounded and kind. William found himself thinking more seriously about Danny's future education and the financial realities of providing opportunities for an intellectually gifted child. His job at the county office provided a steady income, but it was modest. Kate's volunteer work was fulfilling but unpaid. Sarah's income was growing but still limited. One evening, after Danny had gone to bed and Sarah had retired to her room to work on the writing she had quietly resumed, William broached the subject with Kate. "We need to start planning for Danny's future," he said as they sat together on the couch. Kate working on a knitting project she had started for Danny's Christmas present. "What kind of planning?" Kate asked, though her tone suggested she had been thinking along similar lines. "Education, primarily. If he continues at this pace, he's going to need opportunities that go beyond what the local school system can provide. Advanced classes, enrichment programs, maybe eventually college scholarships. We need to think about how to support that." Kate set down her knitting and looked at her husband seriously. "Are you talking about money?" "Partly, yes. But also about making sure we're positioned to be the kind of advocates and supporters he's going to need. Sarah is working hard, but she's still building her career and financial stability. We have experience, resources, and time that could make a real difference in Danny's opportunities." "You're talking about a long-term commitment," Kate said softly. "Not just helping out during a difficult time, but really becoming his family in every sense." William nodded. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. I want to be more than just the grandfather who helped out when times were tough. I want to be the grandfather who helped him become everything he's capable of becoming." Kate smiled and reached for William's hand. "I was hoping you'd say that, because I've been making the same plans in my head for weeks now." They talked late into the night about practical considerations and emotional commitments, about the ways their lives would need to change to accommodate long-term responsibilities for a growing child, about the joy and purpose that had entered their lives since Danny and Sarah had arrived at their door. The next morning brought an unexpected development that would test their new family bonds in ways they hadn't anticipated. Sarah came down to breakfast looking pale and shaken, clutching an official-looking letter in her hand. "What's wrong?" Kate asked immediately, her maternal instincts detecting distress. Sarah held up the letter with trembling hands. "It's from Child Protective Services. Someone called in a report about Danny's living situation." The words hit William like a physical blow. Someone had reported them to Child Services? What could they possibly have done wrong? "What kind of report?" William asked, trying to keep his voice calm for Danny's sake, though the boy was focused on his breakfast and hadn't yet noticed the tension among the adults. Sarah read from the letter with a shaky voice. "Anonymous report alleging that a minor child is living with unrelated adults in an inappropriate arrangement. Investigation required to ensure child welfare and safety." Kate sank into her chair, her face white with shock. Who would do such a thing? And what's inappropriate about our arrangement? The letter says someone reported that Danny is living with strangers who aren't legally his guardians, that there's no official custody arrangement, and that the situation appears to be. Sarah's voice broke as she read the final phrase. "Potentially unstable and not in the child's best interests." William felt a surge of anger unlike anything he had experienced in years. Someone had looked at their loving, stable household and seen something suspicious or wrong. Someone had decided that their unconventional but happy family was a threat to Danny's welfare. "When are they coming?" William asked, forcing himself to think practically despite his emotional reaction. "Friday afternoon. A caseworker named Ms. Martinez will be conducting the interview and home inspection." Today was Wednesday. They had 2 days to prepare for an investigation that could potentially destroy the family they had worked so hard to build. Danny looked up from his cereal, sensing the change in atmosphere. "Is everything okay, Mama?" Sarah quickly folded the letter and forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just some paperwork we need to take care of." But William could see the fear in her eyes, and he knew that Kate shared his own terror at the possibility of losing Danny. They had all fallen completely in love with this arrangement, this life they had built together. The thought of it being torn apart by bureaucratic interference was almost unbearable. As Danny finished his breakfast and gathered his school things, the three adults exchanged meaningful looks. They would need to talk about this crisis as soon as Danny left for school, and they would need to figure out how to protect their family from forces they didn't fully understand. The door that had opened 4 weeks ago to reveal Danny and Sarah had brought them more joy than William had thought possible. But now they faced the possibility that other doors, bureaucratic, legal, and official might be open to take that joy away. The fight for their family was about to begin, and William was determined that they would win it. Danny belonged with them, and they belonged with Danny. Whatever it took, whoever had made this report, whatever obstacles they faced, they would find a way to protect the love and stability they had created together. But as Danny hugged each of them goodbye and headed off to school with his backpack and his innocent trust that his world would remain safe and stable, William felt a cold fear settling in his stomach. Love, he was learning, was both the most powerful force in the universe and the most vulnerable to the arbitrary cruelties of a system that often failed to understand what it was supposed to protect. The 2 days before the Child Protective Service's visit passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. As soon as Danny left for school on Wednesday morning, William, Kate, and Sarah had gathered around the kitchen table to confront the reality of their situation. "We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with," William said, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his stomach. "Let me call my friend Tom Bradley. He's a family lawyer who might be able to give us some guidance." Tom Bradley had been William's friend since high school, and his law practice included family court cases. When William explained their situation, Tom's immediate response was both reassuring and sobering. "The good news is that anonymous reports often don't carry much weight if there's no evidence of actual harm or neglect," Tom explained over the phone. "The bad news is that the system can be unpredictable, especially when there are unconventional living arrangements involved." "What should we expect from this investigation?" William asked, putting the call on speaker so Kate and Sarah could hear. "The caseworker will interview all the adults and Danny separately. They'll inspect the home, looking for safety issues, adequate food and clothing, appropriate sleeping arrangements. They'll want to understand the family dynamics and financial stability. Most importantly, they'll assess whether Danny appears happy, healthy, and well cared for." Sarah spoke up.